Next, I would like to create another thing that will be a list. So to use lists, we have to add a new using statement on top of this class. So I'll write using system collections dot generic. So this namespace system collections generic lets us use lists in our code. So I'll create a new list and I will write private list of the type tile. And the easiest way to explain what a list is basically a dimensionless array. So we just add elements to our list and we don't have to know how many elements will this list hold. So I'll write list of tile and I would like to call it empty tiles. And once I've created this list, I should also initialize it. So I will write new list of tiles and I have to put these parentheses in the end. If I didn't initialize this array right here in the start, we couldn't use it, or we should initialize it somewhere in our code before we were intending to use it. But right now it is safe to use it anywhere in our code. So I can go to our for each loop and I will write empty tiles dot add. This is the method of adding new elements to our array, and I will write t. So what this will do is, in this for each loop, it will add all the tiles to our array of empty tiles, because right in the beginning of our game we have all our tiles empty, and after we've done that I would like to create a new method and I will call it generate. So I'll write void generate, and inside of this method the first thing that I'd like to check is if empty tiles dot count, which will give us the number of the elements that our empty tiles list holds right now, is more than 0. So if we have empty tiles, because if we don't have any empty tiles we cannot generate new tiles. And I will open a new block of code. And now we have to do an interesting thing. We don't want our tiles to always appear in one corner or to start from one corner and go to another. We want them to appear in random locations. So we will start with generating a random number. So I'll write int and I will call this int index for new number, and I will write random dot range. Random range is a function that will pick a random number for us between some values that we supply to it. So I will write 0, and another value will be empty tiles dot count. So basically what we want to do is we want to select one of our empty tiles, and then I can just write empty tiles and we can interact with our list with the same syntaxes that we interact with our arrays. So I will put these square brackets and I will write our newly created index. So index for new number dot number equals 2. So what we have already accomplished here is that just these couple of lines of code will first pick the index for our random number, and it will search only in the indexes that our empty tiles list holds. So it will pick one tile from our empty tiles and it will set its number to 2. And what we have to do next is, because a tile with this index is no longer empty, we have to say empty tiles dot remove at. So this will remove a tile at a specific index, and I will open the parentheses and I will enter index for new number. Alright, so our generate method is almost complete, and we can now go to our update method, and I will add a couple of lines of code just for testing this generate method. So I will say if input get key down. So if we press some kind of a button on our keyboard, and I will write keycode dot G, because G stands for generate, and I will say generate. So if at any moment of the execution of our game we will press G on our keyboard, Game Manager will generate a new tile for us. I know that the original True for 8 game doesn't have this functionality, but we are doing this just for the sake of testing. So I'll go to File and I can click Save All, and go to Unity. As usual, it takes a couple of seconds for Unity to load, and once it is loaded I can launch our game. And as you can see, our field is empty, but now let's try to press G. And as I press G, we can see that new tiles appear on our game field in random positions. And once our game field is full, I press G, but it doesn't have any effect. And there is another interesting feature in the 204.8 game. If you have played 204.8 game, you should know that when a new tile is generated, it is most likely a number 2 tile, but there is a small probability that number 4 tile will be generated. So to reflect that, I will go to our generate method, and I will create a new integer that will be called random num. So we are just generating another random number, and this time it will be random, and we will also use the same function called range. So I will write range, and in this parentheses I will say pick a number from 0 to 10, and actually the first bound that we supply is inclusive, so we can get the 0 from this method, and the upper bound is exclusive, so we cannot get 10 from this method, we can just get a 9. And in the next line I will check, so if our random num, randomly generated number, equals 0, then I can copy this line from here. I will press Ctrl C and Ctrl V. Then we will generate a number 4 tile. And else, if our random number is not 0, we will then generate a 2 tile. So basically what's going on here, we are generating a random number that can return us a value between 0 and 9, and there is 1 out of 10 probability that we can get a 0, and in that case we will generate a tile with number 4, and else we're going to generate a tile with number 2. So I will go to our file and hit save, and I will go to Unity once again and launch our game to check this functionality that we have just added. So now when the game launches, the game field is empty, and once I try to generate new tiles, as you can see we already have a 4, and we have another number 4 tile. So our main achievement during the course of this lecture is that we have added the random tile generation to our game, and we have also added a couple of lines of code to the update method of our game manager so that we can test it and see for ourselves how it works. And in the next lecture I will talk about how moves are made in the original 204.8 game and how we can implement this functionality in our application. And we will take some preparatory steps for writing code that will move and merge the tiles on our game field. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.